need you to do the hymns.
Pick the hymns? Is that what you're saying?
Sing those.
Oh.
They could pick those.
Yeah.
I think they were in Greek.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah. He does that sometimes. Thank you. Okay. John.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our service. Come on in, have a seat. For the next 5 minutes or so, John Shepard is going to play for you as the folks who are watching from home log onto their computers and get their sound working and so forth. So, give your attention to John Shepard.
Hi, Kay.
Well, David.
I hear my name being mentioned in vain here. No? You said David?
Oh, no.
I don't know if I have the tools, but I can take apart and check the entrance to the sanctuary. The door, the handle, it looks like, feels like it's ready to fall off. So you gotta take off that blade. I don't know what's inside. It's tightened in, but just so you know. I have screwdrivers.
If you'll join me now in lighting the chalice, the words are in your order of service. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, and celebration of the life we share together.
I tried to. I haven't connected with her, so.
Because Clay reached out to me and said, I don't have that access yet.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't see that I got access to the website. I did see that I got access to email. But if I get access to the website, I can check on that. No problem.
Yeah, she's the one that would have to set that up.
Oh, okay. So, okay. All right. Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Out of the flames of fear, we rise with courage of our deepest convictions to stand for justice, inclusion, and peace. Out of the flames of scrutiny, we rise to proclaim our truth, our faith, with hope to heal a fractured and hurting world. Out of the flames of doubt, we rise to embrace the mystery, the wonder and awe of all there is and all there is yet to be. Out of the flames of hate, we rise with the force of love, love that celebrates our shared humanity. Out of the flames, we rise. That's a call for us today from the words of Sarah Lawal to remind us of what we are and who we are and how we're going to arrive at the places that are most significant in our world today. And I pray that you hear those words and that would inspire you to breathe deeply and to understand the place to which you've come. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Charlie Tyler. I'm the minister here, along with 3 other guys that do a pretty good job bringing some encouragement to us. One of them will be Reverend Dick Hood a little bit later, and I'm looking forward to hearing what his words are to us today. Those of you who are guests and visitors, in a moment, I'm going to give you a chance, if you're willing, to stand and tell us where you're from and where you live, because there's a real good chance that there are others in this place that are familiar with where you've either come from or where you're living now, and we can find a bridge into our own fellowship to get together. But you should know, those of you who are guests, that you have managed to find your way into the most compassionate, caring, and loving community that there is on this side of the continent. I'm glad that you have made it here. You will think that I am speaking hyperbole. I am not. This is an amazing place, and the reason why these people are here today is because of the love and compassion that they give to each other. We have something called back talk. Talk back. Or back talk, as the case may be. Do the back talk with Dick. Leave the talk back with me next week. I would love for you to stay and listen and get a sense of who we are, because that's one of the best ways that you might be able to get a feel for us and for our community, and that might be something that's special for you. So we gather here in this place, and I hope that we're able to get to know each other a little bit better. Are there any first or second time visitors that are willing to stand and introduce themselves? If you are, just stand where you are, and I'll call you out. None? Very good. That's I. We'll continue to grow. So as we gather in this place, we are understanding the way in which Dick Hood will be speaking to us. And so I'm going to turn this over to Reverend Hood now. Dick, if you would, please.
Good morning. Welcome to Mid-Coast, Maine. I'm missing my church, but I'm enjoying my summer in Maine, as you can imagine. We have a favorite song for the season this year. It's called Rain, Rain, Go Away. It's been a very rainy time since we've been here, and as I sit in front of my computer, I look down on the screen, and flashing on the lower left is the flood warning sign. So, we'll take that as it comes, I guess. But I do bring you some good news from Maine. On the political front, interestingly enough, the state of Maine has just passed one of the most liberal laws regarding reproductive freedom for women and regarding protections for the LGBTQ community. And so we have something to rejoice that up here in the little northeast corner of the country, we are in a period of political enlightenment, which makes me and a lot of other people very happy. This morning we're going to be talking about change, particularly as it relates to our Unitarian Universalist community, but also to the larger community. And I'd like you to pay attention, maybe perhaps a little more than usual, to my opening words, and I'll talk about the reason why I asked that in just a minute. Welcome to our Unitarian Universalist community. We are a diverse and inclusive congregation that values the worth and dignity of every person. We welcome people of all races, genders, sexual orientations, ages, abilities, and beliefs. Whether you are a longtime UU or new to our faith, we invite you to join us in exploring life's big questions, building relationships, and making a positive difference in the world. Great words, well done. I'd like to say I wrote them, but the fact of the matter is that as an experiment, I went to something called SAGE, which is an artificial intelligence program, and I typed in UU Welcome Sunday. Out came those words. we can rejoice, I guess, that we have created something of such creativity. As a minister, I shudder a little bit because I'm not sure I'm needed anymore. What's next is an AI sermon? I certainly hope not. But it certainly is part of our changing world. And if there is one constant thing that continues in our lifetimes, it's the idea of change. And I'll be talking more about that in a bit. In the meantime, I hope you will join me and rise as you are willing and able and sing hymn number 290, Light of Ages, Hand of Nations, particularly paying attention to where it says, Revelation is not sealed.
And that's 190, as somebody will see. Thank you. May we stand and sing together. If you would please take with your hymnals into your hands, turn with me to responsive reading of the reading 458 that's in your... You're right, I've done it again. It's always a concern. I'm going to sit down, you guys.
Good morning. This is the part of our service where we choose to share our joys and concerns. This part is not streamed, and we ask that you make no political statements nor any announcements. If you want to share a joy or concern, which we feel like if you share your joys, that enhances them, and if you share your concerns, it makes them easier to bear. So come forward, give us your name, tell us your joy or concern, take a stone from the basket and put it into the carom. two stones for the joys and concerns which we carry in our hearts. And now, I'll do this. Turn to number 458, affirmation, and we can read it together. Mindful of truth, ever exceeding our knowledge, and community, ever exceeding our practice, reverently we come together, beginning with ourselves as we are, to share strength, integrity, and the heritage of the Spirit, in the unending quest for wisdom and love.
So, 27 years ago, I moved to Hilton Head. I came to the island in the summer of 1996, and that fall I joined this congregation. At the time, it was called the Unitarian Fellowship of Hilton Head, and we were renting space from Congregation Beth Yam. They didn't use the synagogue on Sundays, so on that day, it was all ours. In 1997, the following year, the congregation asked me if I would serve as the Director of Religious Education, and I agreed. It was one of the best decisions I've made in my life, and the rest is history. And we could leave it at that if Reverend Dick Hood hadn't asked me if I would talk a little bit about the history of our congregation this morning. He will be focusing on transformation, which, as Unitarian Universalists, is one of our highest values. For us, transformation means that we adapt to the changing world, that together we transform and we grow spiritually and ethically, never complete and never perfect. Dick asked if I could share my perception of how this congregation has changed and some of the things we've gone through since I've been a part of it. And to tell you the truth, I've never really thought about this, so as I began reflecting on it, I started seeing our congregation as its own system, as a living, breathing, ever-changing being, responding as needed to the things that are going on around us in the community and in the world. An example of this was September 11th, 2001. It was one of the darkest days in American history. It's a day that none of us will ever forget. And what I remember most was the Sunday after 9/11. The sanctuary that we were renting in the Jewish temple was absolutely overflowing. I swear that every single one of our members attended the service that day. The terrorist attacks changed us. Everything had changed, and we needed to be together. My memory is so clear of the congregation that day. We were literally clinging to each other, all of us knowing that our world was changing, and we were going to have to figure out how to adapt. Our congregation experienced a similar transformation on January 6th, 2021. It was a Wednesday. It was the day that the white supremacist Trump supporters attacked our United States Capitol. And again, there was that same yearning for our congregation to come together, to be with one another, only this time we were right in the middle of the COVID pandemic, so we were isolated and separated. But again, the congregation responded. And what I remember most about this event was that the very next morning, Reverend Charlie Tyler reached out to all of us by email or by phone or by whichever way he could with these words. He said, "What we witnessed yesterday on January 6th shocked us. It frightened us, it nauseated us, and it broke our hearts. And many of us saw it coming, but we hoped that it might not. Given the course on which this country has been set for the last 4 years, it's not surprising. But remember this, when the smoke cleared, the hard work of democracy eventually finished. Know that, he said. Tell your broken hearts that, and say it with me. The hard work of democracy was finished. And he wrote to us and said, I want you to have that truth in your soul. What Charlie was doing was he was reminding us that democracy had prevailed, so that there was still hope. And we were all at home, and we were stunned and changed by what we had seen, but we were not alone. Our minister was taking care of us with his calm and reassuring words. Because he also said that besides knowing that our democracy was not lost, we should remember that love always wins. Hate and fear are powerful motivators, he said, but only love can finish this long run. Love will win, and that is why we, you and I, and you, are so important. Together we must find the way to give voice to love, compassion, and mercy. And he suggested that we review our 7 principles if we were struggling, and he told us that even if we weren't sure of it, love would win. These events changed us and changed our congregation. In 2007, we had one of our most transformative years. It was under the leadership of Anthony Serpy and Linda Nelson that we hired a full-time minister, and we built this building that we are in right now. It was a labor of love, and it was a proud and happy time for us. When Barack Obama won the presidency in 2008, we were dancing in our parking lot. Things were changing. Our congregation was transforming. We were no longer the Unitarian Fellowship of Hilton Head. We were now the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Low Country, and it was a new day. And since then, the life of this congregation has been this steady stream of highs and lows. In 2015, on June 26th, we wept together as President Obama delivered the eulogy and sang Amazing Grace at the funeral for those killed in the shooting at the Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston. And on that very same day, we cried tears of joy as the Supreme Court finally legalized same-sex marriage. So in answer to Dick's question, how has your congregation, how has our congregation changed over the years? I guess what I would say is that what I've seen is that UUCL has been able to go with the flow. When kids get fussy, we just take them on out. We go with the flow. And we've made it through ups and downs. We've made it through hurricane evacuations and a pandemic. And sometimes our focus has been inward, and other times more outward. There have been moments where we may have taken a few steps backward, and phases where it felt like we were going around in circles, but mostly we've been moving forward. And with each transformation, it feels to me like we have gotten stronger. Every day we're learning new things. We and our beliefs are constantly changing and evolving. As Unitarian Universalists, we often say that revelation is not sealed. That those words were in the hymn that we just sang. Which means that wisdom and insight will continue to reveal themselves to us if we will just keep our hearts and our minds open. Without a doubt, over the years, our congregation has changed. UUCL has shown us that it can adapt, and we have proven that we can thrive. And with that, I'm going to say that going forward in our order of service, we are going to use the time following this message to have whatever young people are here gather the food that you've brought for the food pantry. So I'm going to ask you to hold up whatever you've brought. Maya and I are going to run around and try to collect it. If we miss you, we ask you just to, when the service is over, to bring your canned goods that you bring here each week and just bring them to the table at the back of the room and place them there, and then we will get them delivered to a local food pantry sometime this week. Thank you.
Any non-perishable, whether it's in a can or a box,
can be donated to the food pantry. Sandalwood Food Pantry on the island is our usual donation place, but once a month we also take food to the Bluffton Self-Help. And John, are you going to play for us now? Okay, thank you.
Offertory.
He doesn't usually play after we donate food. And now we'll pass the basket. If you are a visitor, please let the basket pass. Your presence here is a gift to us. And now John will play. Thank you for your generous gifts.
For those of you who have not heard Dick Hood speak, you're in for a treat. This is one of my most favorite people on the planet. So I'm going to turn this over now. Dick Hood, if you would please bring your message.
Thank you, Charlie. I want to first of all, thank Anne for that wonderful recitation of our history, and noting that we are a changing group and will continue to be so, and that's kind of the focus of today's sermon. But I'd like to start with asking a personal question. I won't be soliciting individual answers, but I'd like you to think about cleaning your closet. Yeah, everybody sometime, some people more than others, has to go through this task of going into your closet and kind of sorting out things that either don't fit anymore or that you don't like, and maybe that you want to discard, and at the same time making space perhaps for some new items, and in general maybe cleaning up the residue of many years of neglect. I know I neglect my closet, and I know I have t-shirts in my closet that are 25 years old. I'm kind of proud of that, actually. That's another issue. But all of us, at some time in our life, have to go through the process of cleaning our closet. And to some degree, that's what's going on right now in our denomination. And it's not necessarily an easy time, because discarding old things or saying that old beliefs or statements or wordings don't fit, that they need perhaps to be updated or discarded, that's a difficult thing. But we're in the midst of that process, and I'd like to just bring you up to date about what's going on and what's going to happen, because you're going to be hearing a lot about this process in the coming year. About 3 years ago, a committee was formed. Naturally, we Unitarian Universalists do nothing without a committee. Take a look at the 7 principles and to suggest modifications or whatever. And they were very hard at work, and they were a very diverse group. And they started with the idea of modifying the 7 principles, of tweaking them. And as they got further into the process, they made the decision that really they needed to start from scratch and discard the 7 principles, but retain the ideas that are in them. So get rid of the clothing that doesn't fit, but certainly keep the clothing that's important to us in our belief closet. This past June, the General Assembly of the UUA, our denomination, voted to accept the committee's proposals. That does not mean that they're final. We are now engaged in a year of study to go through what their recommendations are and what they propose for, quote, Article 2. We've got to come up with a better name than that, but it's Article 2 of our denomination constitution or bylaws. We need to come up and look at their proposals, look at how they presented them, because it's in the shape of a flower, and each petal has a value, and the center of the flower is represented by the chalice, which is the idea of truth, and the word love. And this is a complicated process. But it's an important process for reasons I'll talk about a little bit later. But I want to stress, first of all, the uniqueness of this time in our history as a congregation and our history as a denomination, and even our personal history. It's an unusual time. In any other religious faith, you don't get the chance to vote, as we will next June at the General Assembly, whether or not to accept these words and these changes. But in our denomination, you get to vote, and that starts with our congregations studying and talking and hashing out, and hopefully in our congregation we will actually take some sort of vote, pro or con, or request changes or whatever. But we have a year to study. In any other denomination, that wouldn't happen. In Roman Catholicism, the Pope and cardinals make those decisions. In Judaism, most of those decisions are made by very educated rabbis. In Islam, they're made by imams and the church hierarchy. Even the Southern Baptists didn't really get to vote as a congregation on this idea that women were not welcome in the pulpit. What an absurd idea, to say the least. Anne has read the idea, the text of transformation about one of our values, but I want to read it again because it really is important. Transformation. We adapt to the changing world. We covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. Openness to change is fundamental in our Unitarian and Universalist heritages. Never complete, never perfect. Now, there's a lot to unpack there. That's Charlie's expression that I've picked up from Charlie, this idea of unpacking. And certainly I would start by saying that if there is one thing that is absolutely necessary to be a Unitarian Universalist, it is the idea of openness to change. The idea that somehow we don't know everything. Revelation is not sealed. It's not whatever the Pope says, who's infallible. It's not completely what's in the Holy Bible, Old Testament and New Testament. There are so many other sources, and we spend a lot of time looking at the sources of philosophers, of personal inspiration, of novelists, of all kinds of things. The streams of religious truth are many, and the stream keeps flowing. If you want to be a Unitarian Universalist, you have got to believe in the idea of change, that revelation is not sealed. The wording talks about our Unitarian and Universalist heritages. I haven't heard that word in the plural very often, but it really is true that this is part of our history that we're kind of giving a new world words to. For Unitarians, the idea of the search for truth and inspiration from a variety of sources, the use of science in religion, that's part of our heritage that goes back many, many centuries, but particularly in the Transcendental movement, where most of our religious heroes came from. The idea of searching for truth is fundamental to Unitarianism. In Universalism, it's a little different. The fundamental idea of optimism, the idea that things can change, that we're not stuck in some sort of vicious circle, the idea that we can work to make things better, that human beings can be perfected. The Universalists went so far as to say, and in their avowal of faith, they believe in the supreme worth of every human personality. And later they talk about us humans trying to create the kingdom of God on earth. That optimistic view is part of our Universalist faith. And you know what? I still believe that. I still believe that change is still coming and that we have to have at least a tolerance for change, if not welcoming the changes that are upon us. I don't know what the change is going to be about artificial intelligence, but what I read this morning as our call to worship was beautiful. I thought the language was exquisite, but it's also, I have to admit, a little scary that I can put 3 words into a computer and come up with something that is that accurate, and in this case, completely accurate, and that well phrased. I'm not sure. I'm uncomfortable. And that same discomfort and unsureness is going to be part of most of us as we take this year to look at this new Article 2. But look at it we must. And while I favor, if I had to say right now, would I vote yes or no on this idea of transparent information and collectively and spiritually and ethically grow and be openness to change, I would agree. I would agree even more that we perhaps have found a new motto for Unitarian Universalism, a new motto, a new catchphrase that even though it's negative, really sums up who we are and the process that we're on, the idea of spiritual growth. And that appears in the last words. Never complete and never perfect. Wow. Think about that for a moment. We are not complete persons Our religious faith is not complete. And certainly, almost an item of confessionalism, we are never perfect. And by definition, our religious faith, both personally and worldwide, is also really never perfect. That we have blemishes, we have things that need to be rooted out, we have a history that while we love to praise about our social justice in the past, we have some blots on our history that we don't talk about perhaps as frequently. Never complete, never perfect. Sounds good to me. However, at the risk of being kind of nitpicky, I don't like all the words in this proposal. And unlike Anne, who I think has made a good case for the idea of transformation, I don't really care for that word. First of all, when I first heard it, first of all, I thought of those toys that my kids used to play with, the Transformers, that you have these model cars and you flip them around and they become different. That wasn't a good first impression. But second of all, I'm not sure that transformation, the idea that we're going to be here and then we're going to be there, that there's a caterpillar and then the butterfly, is really a very good word. I don't think we're out to transform ourselves 100%, which I think that word implies. I think the second word that's used, the word grow ethically and spiritually, is a much, much better word that captures what I think they're trying to say in this sentence. That our faith grows and matures and perhaps becomes better, hopefully, as we age and mature as people, as a denomination, and in the world. So I'm not too crazy about the actual term transformation. Then comes the sentence, we adapt to the changing world. I'm not quite sure what the heck that means. It strikes me as a truism. Does that mean we have a choice of adapting to the changing world? I don't think so. I finally gave in a few years ago and got myself a cell phone, even though I don't carry it much, and I don't rely on it perhaps as much people, but I gave in. So many people would say, well, I'll text you with this, or check it out, or blah, blah, blah. That was my unfortunate growth, I guess, if you want to call it that. I'm not sure that we have a choice on whether or not we adapt to the changing world. I don't think we have a choice about whether or not we're going to adapt to artificial intelligence. We don't know how that's going to turn out. We know that there are threats, certainly, that we're going to less and less talk to people on the telephone when we call, and now they're talking about even you call some number and describe your symptoms, and some computer with artificial intelligence is going to tell you what's wrong with you. That's scary to me. So we adapt, yes, but we don't really have a choice. However, having said all that, this is a good statement that probably I think needs some tweaking. You can think that maybe this is some sort of intellectual elite kind of process, that only certain people are going to get involved in formulating the next statement of our religious faith. I really beg to differ with that, and I want to encourage you to become part of the process. It is very important that we have discussions where we finally share and vocalize our common values and our common goals. How can you have social justice if you have disagreement, major fundamental disagreement in the group that's trying to promote it? How can you promote ethical growth if you're bickering about little words and on sentences about beliefs? I have been in congregations that bickered, and I'll tell you that it's not a pleasant place to be, and certainly it is not the environment that social change can occur. It's important that we spend the time to come up with the words that almost all of us, never all of us, but almost all of us can at least accept and make it part of our religious heritage. I regret losing the seventh principles. I grew very accustomed for the last 50 years, but maybe reluctantly the time has come. Maybe reluctantly I need to go into my own closet of spiritual beliefs and look at those old beliefs, some of which don't fit, some of which are outmoded, some of which will at least need to be dry cleaned and spiffed up a little bit. That's what's going on here. And I would invite you to be part of that process. If we're going to make a difference in the world, if we're going to make a difference in ourselves, in our church, and in our country and world, we need to be fundamentally in agreement with one another. Take the time. Go into that spiritual closet. Take the time to examine over the next year, and you'll be hearing a lot about Article 2. They got to come up with a better name. But it's a new Unitarian Universalism. It's not brand new, but it's a new way to express who we are. And if we're going to go forward, we need to agree and study and make a statement as a community. That's my political point of view, and for better or worse, I'm going to stick with it, even if we got flood warnings coming here in Maine. Thanks very much.
Just as John was playing, I could hear some of you humming, speaking those words. It's rich and sweet in our spirits and in this place. Dick, thank you so much for your words. We're looking forward to hearing what the talkback might look like. But for those of us that are here in this place, if you would please take your hymnals into your hands, turn with me to hymn 139, and may we stand, if you're willing and able, and sing together, Wonders Still, the World Shall Witness. extremely significant, this blooming of song and fragrance, harmony, thought and deed, fruits of peace and love and justice. Where today we plant the seed. The seed's been planted, and we continue to tend it and water it and watch it grow and make it be a part of our lives. Dick, as always, I thank you for your message, your heart, your spirit. I know that most of the time you're actually speaking Molly's words, and so we acknowledge that and give her credit too, and I think you will probably agree with me. But thank you for being here today and for your time among us. John and David, those of you that made this service possible, thank you for your leadership and your inspiration. Now, final remarks, if you would please, Reverend Hood.
If I have a personal hero, it is Harriet Tubman. And I'd like to close with a brief quote from Harriet Tubman. Every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember, you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world. Have a good week.
If you'll join me now in extinguishing our chalice. While we extinguish this flame, we still carry in our hearts the light of truth, warmth of unity, and fire of humanity, until we are together again.
Check, 1, 2.